Welcome to MCR's Biochemistry lecture. In this video, we are going to see about the calcium regulating hormones, calcitriol, calcitonin and parathyroid hormone. Before moving on to the functional aspects of hormones, let us see what is the importance of calcium in a body. Calcium is the most abundant among the minerals in the body. The total content in an adult man is that of 1 to 1.5 kilograms, and 99% of calcium is present in the bones and teeth. Only a small fraction, almost 1% of the calcium, is found outside the skeletal tissue. Calcium has got many biochemical functions in the body. The first and foremost being the development of bones and teeth. Calcium, along with phosphate, is required for the formation of hydroxyapatite and the physical strength of the skeletal tissue. Bone is regarded as a mineralized connective tissue and serves as a reservoir of calcium. Osteoblasts are responsible for bone formation, while osteoclasts results in demineralization. Calcium is also very much important for muscle contraction. It interacts with troponin C to trigger muscle contraction. Calcium also activates ATPase, which increases the interaction between actin and myosin. Several reactions in the cascade of blood clotting processes are dependent on calcium. Calcium is also necessary for the transmission of nerve impulse. Enzymes like pancreatic lipase, ATPase, and succinate dehydrogenase require calcium for their activation. Calcium forms a complex with a calcium binding regulatory protein called calmodulin and activates certain enzymes like adenylate cyclase and protein kinases. Calcium also acts as an intracellular messenger, the examples being epinephrine and antidiuretic hormone. It also helps in the release of insulin, parathyroid hormone, and calcitonin from the endocrine glands. Calcium plays a major role in maintaining the membrane integrity and permeability. It regulates microfilament and microtubule mediated processes such as endocytosis, exocytosis, and cell motility. Ionized calcium is involved in cell to cell contact and adhesion of cells in a tissue. It also acts on myocardium and prolongs systole. So, having seen the vast biochemical functions of calcium, let us now move on to the dietary requirements. Adult men and women require around 800 milligrams of calcium per day. Women during pregnancy, lactation, and postmenopause require slightly higher range of calcium. It is 1.5 grams per day. Children from the age 1 to 18 years require 0.8 to 1.2 grams per day, and infants, the ones below 1 year, require 300 to 500 milligrams per day. Milk and milk products are the best sources of calcium. Beans, leafy vegetables, fish, cabbage, and egg yolk constitute the good sources. The absorption of calcium mostly occurs in the duodenum by an energy dependent active process that is influenced by several factors. Vitamin D in its active form, calcitriol, parathyroid hormone, acidity, lactose, and amino acids like lysine and arginine promote calcium absorption, whereas phytates, oxalates, dietary phosphates, free fatty acids, alkalinity, and high content of dietary fiber inhibit calcium absorption in the body. 50% of the calcium exists in the ionized form, and 10% are complex with phosphate, bicarbonate, and citrate, and the rest 40% are bound to proteins. Now let's see about the factors regulating plasma calcium level. Calcium is almost exclusively present in blood plasma, and calcitriol, parathyroid hormone, and calcitonin are the major factors that regulate the plasma calcium within the narrow range, that is 9 to 11 milligrams per deciliter. Having seen the importance of calcium, now let's learn about the calcium regulating hormones. The first one that we are going to see is calcitriol. Vitamin D, a fat-soluble vitamin, resembles sterols in structure and functions like a hormone. Calcitriol or 1,25 dihydroxycholecalciferol is the physiologically active form of vitamin D and acts as a hormone. Calcitriol induces the synthesis of a specific calcium binding protein in the intestinal cells, and this protein increases the intestinal absorption of calcium as well as phosphate. The blood calcium level is increased by this calcitriol. It also stimulates calcium uptake by osteoblasts of bone and promotes calcification or mineralization and remodeling. Now let's see about the synthesis of calcitriol. Cholecalciferol, which is obtained from the diet or through the exposure of the skin to the sunlight, enters the liver where it is hydroxylated by a specific hydroxylate at position 25 to form 25 hydroxycholecalciferol. This 25 hydroxycholecalciferol is a major storage and circulatory form of vitamin D. It then enters the kidney, which possesses a specific enzyme 25 hydroxycholecalciferol 1 hydroxylase, which hydroxylates 25 hydroxycholecalciferol at position 1 to produce 1,25 dihydroxycholecalciferol. Thus, 1,25 dihydroxycholecalciferol contains 3 hydroxyl groups at position 1, 3 and 25, and hence it is referred to as calcitriol. Both the hydroxylase enzymes, that which is present in the liver and the kidney, require cytochrome P450, NADPH and oxygen for the hydroxylation process. Moving on to the regulation, the concentration of calcitriol is regulated by plasma levels of calcium and phosphate. They control hydroxylation reaction at position 1. Low plasma phosphate increases the activity of 25 hydroxycholecalciferol 1 hydroxylase. Low plasma calcium enhances the production of parathyroid hormone, which in turn activates 1 hydroxylase. Thus, the action of phosphate is direct, while that of calcium is indirect on kidney 1 hydroxylase. So, here we can see from the figure that vitamin D that is obtained on the exposure of skin to sunlight and from the diet enters the liver where it is hydroxylated at position 25 to form 25 hydroxy cholecalciferol, which then enters the kidney and gets converted into the active form 1,25 dihydroxycholecalciferol with the help of the enzyme 1 alpha hydroxylase. Then it helps in the uptake of calcium and phosphorus by the intestine and also bone resorption, and thereby it helps in maintaining the plasma calcium level. Regarding absorption, vitamin D is absorbed in the small intestine, for which bile is essential. As far as the transport is concerned, through lymph, vitamin D enters the circulation bound to plasma alpha 2 globulin and is distributed throughout the body. The liver and other tissues store small amounts of vitamin D. The daily requirement of vitamin D is 400 international units or 10 milligrams of cholecalciferol. In countries with good sunlight like India, the RDA for vitamin D is 200 international units or 5 milligrams. The good sources of vitamin D include fatty fish, fish liver oils, egg yolk, etc. Milk is not a good source of vitamin D. So, the ways in which vitamin D can be provided to the body is exposure of skin to the sunlight for synthesis of vitamin D, consumption of natural foods, and by irradiating foods that contain precursors of vitamin D, and fortification of foods like milk, butter, oil, etc. Concentrating on the deficiency symptoms, insufficient exposure to sunlight and consumption of diet lacking vitamin D results in its deficiency. Vitamin D deficiency occurs in strict vegetarians, chronic alcoholics, individuals with liver and kidney diseases, or fat malabsorption syndromes. In some people who cover the entire body for religious customs, vitamin D deficiency is also observed if the requirement is not met through diet. The deficiency of vitamin D causes rickets in children and osteomalacia in adults. Rickets is derived from an old English word ricken meaning to twist, and osteomalacia is derived from a Greek language. Osteon means bone and malakia means softness. Vitamin D is often called as anti-rachitic vitamin. Rickets is characterized by bone deformities due to incomplete mineralization, resulting in soft and pliable bones. There is delay in teeth formation, and the persons have bow legs. The plasma level of calcitriol is decreased, and that of alkaline phosphatase is elevated. The case of osteomalacia in adults, they have soft bones due to demineralization of bones, and they have increased susceptibility to fractures. Now let's move on to the second hormone, parathyroid hormone. The parathyroid glands is present at the back side of the thyroid gland. They are four in number and they secrete the parathyroid hormone. Focusing on the structure of parathyroid hormone, it is a single chain polypeptide containing 84 amino acids with a molecular weight of 95,000. The release of parathyroid hormone from parathyroid glands is under the negative feedback regulation of serum calcium. As we see the parathyroid hormone synthesis, low calcium, low calcitriol, or high phosphate provides the stimuli for the synthesis of parathyroid hormone. The pre-pro-parathyroid hormone that contains 115 residues are synthesized within the nucleus, and this undergoes modifications and trimming as it enters the Golgi to produce pro-parathyroid hormone that contains 90 residues. And this pro-parathyroid hormone, as it enters the secretory granules and is ready for secretion, it undergoes further modification to produce the final parathyroid hormone that contains 84 amino acid residues. Shifting to the mechanism of action of parathyroid hormone, the parathyroid hormone binds to a membrane receptor protein on the target cell and activates adenylate cyclase to liberate cyclic AMP. This, in turn, increases the intracellular calcium that promotes the phosphorylation of proteins by kinases, which finally brings about the biological actions. Parathyroid hormone has three independent tissues, bones, kidneys, and intestine, to exert its action. The prime function of parathyroid hormone is to elevate the serum calcium level. So in this slide, we can see the function of parathyroid hormone. Low calcium in the extracellular fluid provides a stimuli for the parathyroid glands to secrete this parathyroid hormone, and increased parathyroid hormone acts on the kidney and the bone, and it enables increased calcium reabsorption and phosphate excretion in the kidney, and calcium pumping to the extracellular fluid from the bones, and also bone resorption. And in the kidney, it also enables the vitamin D to get converted to its active form 1,25 dihydroxycholecalciferol, which acts on the small intestine and enhances the calcium absorption. Thus, the calcium level in the extracellular fluid will be increased and brought back to normal level. The abnormality associated with this parathyroid hormone that is of much significance is hyperparathyroidism. Here we have the primary, secondary, and tertiary hyperparathyroidism. Hyperfunction of parathyroid cells due to hyperplasia, adenoma, or carcinoma is a pathological condition in the case of primary hyperparathyroidism. It may be associated with multiple endocrine neoplasia, and in this case, the serum calcium is high, whereas that of serum phosphate is low or in the normal level. This can be managed usually by surgery if symptomatic, or drugs can be administered for those who are not fit for surgery. In the case of secondary hyperparathyroidism, physiological stimulation of parathyroid in response to hypocalcemia is a pathological condition, and this occurs due to chronic renal failure or other causes of vitamin D deficiency. In this case, serum calcium level is low or in the normal range, whereas that of phosphate is very high. And treatment of the underlying cause can rectify this secondary hyperparathyroidism. Long-term physiological stimulation leading to hyperplasia leads to tertiary hyperparathyroidism. It is always seen in chronic renal failure, and in this case both the serum calcium and phosphate level are high, and this is managed by surgery or by administration of drugs. So hyperparathyroidism causes fatigue, depression and confusion, and thus it affects the nervous system, whereas in the case of digestive system there is loss of appetite, nausea, vomiting and constipation. It also leads to muscle weakness, aches and pains in bones and joints, and it also leads to the formation of kidney stones and increased thirst and urination. These are a few hereditary states associated with hyperparathyroidism: multiple endocrine neoplasia, type 1, type 2A, then Jod tumor syndrome, familial hypocalciuric hypercalcemia, neonatal severe primary hyperparathyroidism, and familial isolated hyperparathyroidism are the hereditary disorders that are associated with hyperparathyroidism. As we compare the level of calcium with that of parathyroid hormone, low parathyroid hormone and low calcium levels lead to primary hypoparathyroidism, and this may be due to surgical resection or autoimmune disorders. Whereas low calcium and high parathyroid hormone levels leads to secondary hyperparathyroidism, and this may be due to vitamin D deficiency, decreased calcium intake or chronic renal failure. Low parathyroid hormone and high calcium levels leads to parathyroid hormone independent hypercalcemia, and this may be due to excessive dietary intake of either calcium or vitamin D or both, or any malignancy. High levels of calcium and parathyroid hormone leads to primary hyperparathyroidism, and the underlying causes may be hyperplasia, adenoma or carcinoma. Now let's see about one more hormone that is involved in the regulation of calcium level in the body, calcitonin. Calcitonin is secreted by parafollicular cells, also called as C cells of the thyroid gland. The action of calcitonin on calcium metabolism is antagonistic to that of parathyroid hormone. It promotes calcification by increasing the activity of osteoblasts. It decreases bone reabsorption and increases the excretion of calcium into urine. Calcitonin therefore has a decreasing influence on blood calcium. Calcitonin is a peptide containing 32 amino acids and was first discovered by Koop and colleagues in the course of investigations to identify hormones that regulate serum levels of calcium. So here we can see the primary, secondary and tertiary structure of the calcitonin in the slide. The principal mechanism of action of calcitonin is due to the ability of its receptor to couple at least two signal transduction pathways. One of the most important pathways is coupled with the cyclic AMP signal transduction. This calcitonin receptors can also couple to the phospholipase C enzyme pathway. The phospholipase C pathway, as with the cyclic AMP pathway, can be initiated by the coupling of receptors to multiple G proteins. Activation of the phospholipase C causes the release of calcium from intracellular stores and promotes an influx of external calcium. So here we can see the functions of calcitonin. It lowers the calcium levels in the blood. It inhibits calcium absorption by the intestine. It promotes deposition of calcium into bones, and thereby it inhibits osteoclasts and stimulates osteoblasts. It inhibits calcium reabsorption in the kidney and facilitates excretion of calcium in the urine. Now let's see how the blood calcium level is maintained in a body. The normal blood calcium level is about 10 milligrams per 100 ml. When there is a rise in the blood calcium level, the thyroid gland releases calcitonin, which stimulates calcium deposition in bones and reduces calcium uptake in kidneys. Thereby, the calcium level reduces and comes to the normal range. When there is a decrease in the blood calcium level, the parathyroid gland is stimulated to release parathyroid hormone, which in turn increases calcium uptake in intestines, calcium uptake in kidneys, and stimulates calcium release from the bones. The parathyroid hormone also enables the vitamin D to get activated into its physiologically active form in the kidney, and this calcitriol also stimulates calcium release from bones and increases calcium uptake in kidneys and in the intestine, and thereby the blood calcium level is brought back to the normal range. Thus, calcitonin, parathyroid hormone, and calcitriol play a major role in maintaining the calcium level in a body. So, calcitonin is antagonistic to the parathyroid hormone and calcitriol. Hope you would have got a clear picture on how hormones play a major role in the calcium homeostasis in the body. Thank you.